What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 98 of Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a thru hiker. I am a peak backer. I am a huge hiking nerd, as you all know, and every single week on this podcast, with the exception of holidays, because I didn't do an episode during Thanksgiving week, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. I'm killing the intro this morning. This is a great episode. This is an Appalachian Trail episode. Some of you hopefully recall episode number 92 with Rune Raven. Well, on this episode, I chat with Rune's partner. Her name is Nikki, and I'm gonna be honest, as you're gonna hear at the very beginning of the conversation, I can't do her name. Like, I could try, but I would just butcher it. It would just be embarrassing for everybody involved, including the listeners, so I'm not even gonna try. Rune and Nikki are both from Denmark, and they hiked the Appalachian Trail this year. As you will recall from the last episode I did with Rune, we spent most of the episode talking about a 2020 AT thru hike in the time of COVID, and I felt like it didn't really do. I don't even know how to say this. I feel like I didn't give him the chance to really talk about his actual hike too much because we just talked about COVID. And so the goal with this episode was to not really talk about COVID that much and just give Nikki a chance to talk about their actual hike because they hiked the entire thing together. And that's basically what we did for the entire episode. Although I guess at the beginning we did also talk about the Camino a little bit, which was interesting because that's something that hasn't really been discussed on the show too much. And it was a great time. So Nikki, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll have to do another episode soon. Those of you that listen to this show on the regular might recall that a few episodes ago I said something about if you leave a iTunes review, I will read it during the next intro. And then I kind of forgot during the next intro, I think. I'm sorry, I took some time off for Thanksgiving. I'm just getting back into this, back into the swing of things here. But I did get some more reviews. Some of them weren't 5 stars though. I got a couple 4-star reviews, which is not great. Like this one, for instance, it says mostly good, but, and then it says host is super cliche and kind of annoying. This dude would drive me nuts if I had to hike with him, but the subject matter is great and everything else is enjoyable. Well, part of me is insulted, part of me knows that you're kind of right, so I'll let it slide. I'm not going to read the next 4-star review because I said 5-star review, so leave a 5-star review. This next one says, you're goofy. This is from Hiker Barbie, by the way, which is hilarious. It says, I enjoy listening to your podcast while driving to my hikes. You're pretty goofy, but in a good way. I like your passion for backpacking. Thank you very much, Hiker Barbie. So yeah, if you guys want to leave a 5-star iTunes review, please do. Please don't call me annoying and cliche, even though we all know those things are the truth. Leaving a 5-star review is a great way to help the show. It helps us rank higher. It helps show people that the show is actually worth listening to. And also, if you want to help support the show, there's an even better thing you can do. If you listen to this podcast on the regular and you have a couple bucks to spare, maybe you buy one less coffee this month or something like that, please check out the Trail Tales Patreon. That's patreon.com/trailtales. You get some perks. You'll get the satisfaction of knowing you are helping to support the best podcast on the internet. I feel like that's what every podcaster says. So I'll say the third best podcast on the internet. That makes absolutely no sense, but we're going to go with it. So yeah, check out the Patreon, please, if you listen to the show a lot. That would be really, really awesome. Patreon.com/trailtales. Let's get into the episode number 98 with Nikki, Appalachian Trail class of 2020. Episode number 98 of Trail Tales. Welcome to... I feel like I shouldn't even try. I'm so bad. Okay, so Nikki is what I know her by. But yeah. As many of my listeners know, I am like really pretty bad with names, or at least I feel like it's the thing where I like try to pronounce someone's name on the spot, like when we're recording, and I just butcher it, or I feel like I'm gonna butcher it. So Nikki is what I know her by. Her trail name is Burst. I also know her by that, but I am not even going to try to pronounce her name because I'm probably going to butcher it because I just butchered it on the first take. Anyways, so Nikki, This feels so wrong. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but
don't be sorry. If I were to pronounce anyone's names beside my own country and American names, I would butcher it too.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are then?
Okay, so my name is, what we would say here in Scandinavia is Nikoline Hamann. But I would say most of my friends abroad just call me Nikoline.
Nikoline, okay.
Yeah.
Nikoline, Nikki. Well, anyways, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. For everybody listening, hopefully you remember a few episodes ago when I talked to Rune Raven. Well, Nikki and Rune are together. They hike together. And we spent most of Rune's episode talking about how COVID affected his thru hike because they hiked this year, obviously, 2020. And I felt kind of bad by the end of the episode because that's all we focused on. And I feel like Rune didn't really get a chance to talk about their actual hike besides just the COVID stuff. And of course, I'm sure that played a huge part in it, but there's got to be more to it, obviously. And so I was like, what better way to have everybody hear about the hike beyond just COVID than to have Nikki on next, which I already wanted to have you on. And so, yeah, here we are. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's going to be fun. So now that we've got your name out of the way, that's so bad. That makes it sound like I'm like, oh, like your name's not important. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to butcher your name and then, okay, let's get to it.
Anyways, yeah, like now that we're past that, I'm terrible. I'm terrible. Yeah, let's hear about just and folks did hear about this stuff a little bit when I asked Rune how he kind of learned about the Appalachian Trail, because it is especially interesting to me when folks from outside the U.S. Just kind of hearing about their stories, how they learned about the AT and stuff. And he did touch on it a little bit, but I'll let you tell the story firsthand. So yeah, how did you learn about the AT, and then just also go through some of your hiking history, all that good stuff?
Yeah. The way I learned about it was I got introduced to hiking when I just graduated from what we call gymnasium, and it doesn't have anything to do with sports or gymnastics or anything. It's mostly like high school or like early college. I wanted to kind of just go out and explore. And how I got to explore the world was I traveled to South America. And went on a few hikes with like a big group of people. And obviously I really enjoyed it. And that kind of got me into thinking that this is a really nice way to kind of see things and feel like you're moving. And it kind of like it connects you to other people in like another kind of way than just going through a big city like New York.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think kind of after that travel and experience in South America, I wanted to go on another hike, and I wanted to challenge myself, like doing like more like a long distance hike. So I did the French way on the Camino. And that's
the French way.
Yeah, the French way of Camino de Santiago. There's more ways connecting, like.
And
Santiago.
I'm gonna guess here, and I apologize to all my European listeners for not knowing this already, but I'm gonna guess that means like just the French part of it, like way as in just like that section, I guess. Is that what it means?
Yeah, it's like it's a section that goes from, it starts in France, and then you kind of cross over the Pyrenees Mountains, and then you, I guess like right on day one, you hit Spain already.
Oh, okay. And
gotcha. Then you make a way across Spain.
Gotcha. I hear that word like way being thrown out a lot when it comes to European trails and hikes and stuff like that. So that's probably something, I'm probably overdue to know that, but better late than never, I guess.
No, you're good. And that was actually on my first day. That's how I got to know about the Appalachian Trail, because I met a guy named Nick, and he finished his hike in the same year, no, the previous year from when I hiked the Camino. So that was his next hike after the AT.
Oh, okay.
So he was still like very excited, and anytime he would get to talk about the trail or gear or anything. He was stoked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I kind of knew about it already just from YouTube and me researching hikes to do.
But was that like the first time you'd heard about it more like personally, I guess, like from somebody?
Exactly. And he was like, he had so many stories and I was so curious. So I got to ask like all the right questions and I could just sense it from him. He was like, yes, I get to talk about my experience again. Oh,
that's awesome. And I'm sure you can probably resonate with that even more now, you know, having actually completed it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. That's crazy. Like, I feel... I don't know much about the Camino. I'm probably like overdue to talk about it because I know there's people out there. There's definitely people out there that want to hear about it. I've gotten messages and emails and stuff asking me to cover it.
In Europe, it's very common. Like almost everyone know about the Camino, or they know someone who's hiked it.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the reasons why. I don't want to say I've like resisted talking about it because it's not like I'm like, no, I refuse to talk about that. But I think one of the reasons why I just haven't really, I don't know, like stepped up and actually like gone through the effort to get someone on to talk about it is because it just seems like so different than what I'm used to as far as hiking goes. Because I'm used to, you know, camping, you know, in the backcountry. I've heard it called wild camping before. I don't know how accurate that is, but I've heard that term tossed around before. I'm used to that. And it seems like, because again, I don't really know, but it seems like the Camino is more like town to town. And there's a lot of like road walking and history and stuff like that. Is that an accurate assessment there?
Yeah, exactly. That's I think that was why I felt more comfortable being my first hike, like long hike. Because I originally wanted to wild camp, carry a tent. My mom was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go without my phone. It's like, oh yeah, you're definitely not going with a tent on your back and without your phone.
Oh, geez.
She's like, why don't you just want to do the Camino? There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's towns, there's food. And then she didn't have to worry about me too much.
Are there still parts of it though that you are like kind of, you know, in the backcountry, as we would call it?
Yeah. I wouldn't call it backcountry exactly. Like,
okay.
It's more like, you know, like the small towns you go through on the AT.
Yeah.
You get to take a ride to a small town where there lives, let's say, like approximately 50 people. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the same, where I knew that there would be no way that I would be in these towns if I didn't hike there.
Okay, I gotcha. That's interesting. I wonder, here's an interesting question that just popped into my head. So, as a lot of people know, I hiked the Vermont Long Trail before I hiked the AT. And I feel like I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it quite as explicitly as I'm about to say it now, but I feel like if you can hike the Long Trail, you can 100% hike the AT as well. So what would you say as far as that situation with the Camino? Do you think it was like good prep? Do you think someone who could hike the Camino could also hike the AT? Like, how do you think those two kind of overlap there?
I wouldn't necessarily say that if you hike the 500 miles of the Camino, that you'd be able to hike the AT in its entirety, like all 2,193 miles. You could definitely do sections, I would say. But as I found, like in the very beginning of the hike, where you're surrounded by a lot of people who all have like the ambition to get all the way to Katahdin, I think a lot of people are surprised by how hard it is.
Oh, yeah.
Even I was like, oh my God, this is hard work. And I didn't necessarily feel that way with the Camino. It's more like the distance. Like with the Pacific Crest Trail, like a lot of people heard that you were able to do like longer days because it's not as steep, or like the trail is pretty easy. Yeah,
allegedly. Interesting. Okay. I guess it's I wasn't trying to make a direct comparison between the Long Trail or the Camino either, because obviously the Long Trail is basically just like the AT, just a lot shorter.
Yeah.
So obviously it's going to lend itself a little bit better for preparation for the AT in that regard. But yeah, that's a little pro tip. If you want to do the AT sometime in the future and you want to see how prepared you'll be, try to do the Long Trail, because the Long Trail, if you can do that trail, I 100% think you can do the AT, even though it's significantly shorter. Anyways,
I would say, I just,
go ahead.
It popped into my head. Okay, a comparison. The first day on the Camino, if you're able to make it through the first day and think, I could do this again, I would say then you kind of have an idea of what the AT is going to be like.
What happened
when you
on
cross like the Pyrenees mountains?
Can you talk about your first day then a little bit? That's
oh my God,
intriguing.
Yeah. Oh my God, my first day. So I did something that I wouldn't say most people do. I booked the plane ticket, but I'm not like the person who plans too much. So when I hit France, I couldn't actually make my way to like the trailhead. So I decided to stay in like a smaller town about 20 miles from the trailhead and then make my way there. And I pushed myself too hard on the very first day.
Oh no, really?
Which, like you're never supposed to do. So when I got there, I got the passport and she told me like, okay, so tomorrow's going to be hard, but after that, it's pretty much just straightforward. And I was like, wait, it's going to be hard? Because that was what no one's told me.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, you have to cross the mountains and you make your way down. So it's going to be a lot of going up, but you could cut the day short and stop here. And it was like, I just knew myself like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
No way.
So it was like going uphill almost all throughout the day. And I could just remember like taking slow steps and like, like trying to catch my breath. And I was oh my God, what did I get myself into?
I feel like that's so true. Like what you said about comparing that to the AT, because I feel like that's definitely what it's like for a lot of people. Yeah. I was very much like, what did I get myself into? But it was more mentally rather than physical. Something I talked about a lot on the very early episodes of Trail Tales, but have not talked about in a long time now because it's been a long time since I hiked. I am curious. So let's go back to that conversation or the conversations you had with, I think you said his name was Nick, the guy that had hiked the AT that you met out there, met on the Camino, that is. So you said you had known a little bit about the trail before, but that was like the first time you had heard like a personal account of somebody who had hiked it, I guess. And you were kind of asking all these questions. I'm wondering if there was like, while you were talking to them, if there was like a moment where you were like, you know what, I think I'm going to try to do this. Or if it was more of like a gradual, like maybe I'll do it, inch you a little bit closer. Maybe I'm thinking about doing it even more. And then eventually you're like, finally, maybe I'll do it. Can you just kind of talk about, when like you kind of, the process and when you kind of cross that line and actually decided like, okay, I think I'm going to give the AT like an actual, like legitimate shot. Yeah.
I remember, so Nick talked about the shelters and a lot about the people that he met and his trail, all the trail names and his trail-amy, like his little family. And he talked about, like the experience of going into towns and everything smells of bacon and everyone smells of perfume and you feel gross, but you're kind of just like living this wild life that's like your reality and everyone else kind of like just like it's doing their thing and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in society anymore. That was really interesting because I've never experienced anything like that before.
Right.
I think it kind of like you get kind of like the similar experience when you go out traveling for more than a month. Like it feels like, okay, I'm doing this, like I'm disconnected from everything back home, which was what I wanted with my hike on the Camino as well. So for him to say like he was doing it for half a year, I was like, oh my God, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
And he did explain how hard it was. And I remember he talked about like in the beginning it was all these wonderful things. And then I was like, oh my God, but isn't it hard? He was like, yeah, it is. And he showed me pictures of them. I think it was crossing Mount Whitney. No, Mount Whitney. What is it? Washington, yeah. Yeah. And he showed me pictures of them crawling and the wind just knocking them over. And I was just looking, I was like, oh my God, is this what you did? And I said something like, I could never, like, I would never be able to do that. And he just looked at me, he was like, yeah, you can. And I think that was like a few days after, like, we hiked pretty much every day and saw each other, and all the time we talked about the AT.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he was like, yeah, you could do it. And
That's
like, you
awesome.
really think so? Because I just didn't believe in myself enough to be like, yeah, one day I'm gonna do it. I think that just stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one day I'm actually gonna do it because Nick thinks I can do it.
When you say it like that, you make it sound like, oh, you know, what most people do. They're like, oh, one day, maybe one day. But it wasn't like that for you. You obviously did it like shortly after. So I guess when did you and Rune like commit? Like, okay, you know, we're not just like talking about it and like, oh, we want to do it, but like, when did you actually be like, okay, we are doing this? Like, we're gonna start making plans to, like, you know, make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it did kind of just happen. Like, I didn't tell Rune about the AT or my dreams of ever hiking the AT, because I didn't want to put it into his head that was something that he wanted to do too.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that was his dream too.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like, I would not drag him out into doing that. He'd be like, "What the heck did you decide that we should do?" I was like, "This is not my idea. This was your idea."
That's smart. I like it.
So I introduced Rune into hiking. When was it? Not last year. Not last summer, but this previous one.
Okay.
Just like a small 2-day hike. We even slept at my grandmother's, so I was like, we'd only have to sleep in the tent for one night, I promise you. And I made sure that it was like an easy going hike.
Yeah, smart. Also very smart.
But everything pretty much just went wrong on that hike. Like, the weather was just not great. It was like, there was thundering, it was raining. We got completely drenched. Rune got so many blisters because I didn't tell it. Like, I was just wear regular socks. Like, it's okay, we're only gonna go on like a short hike. I was like, you don't need to prepare for anything. Like, we got this. But he completely broke his feet. He twisted his ankle. I think, like, he even, like, in the night, like, he had to pee so bad that he almost didn't make it. And the next day he was just like, okay, I want to go home now.
Yeah, I don't blame him after that.
Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, this is it. He's never gonna go on a hike with me again.
But that certainly wasn't the case.
No, definitely no. So that was what I told my colleagues, I was like, he's not gonna go on a hike with me again. And I was kind of bummed, because that's something I really enjoy to do.
Right.
But then I got home and he had all these questions, like, what is the AT? He's been watching Darwin and everyone on YouTube. So he was like, what is the AT that everyone seems to be talking about? Like, who's everyone? So I explained kind of like the same way that Nick explained it to me, to Rune. He's like, yeah, do you want to do it? I was like,
you were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, no, I was not fuck yeah. I was like,
No?
okay, I'm going to make sure that this is something he wants to do. It's like, so you want to go on a 6-month hike and hike like 2,000 miles? Is that what you want to do? He's like, yeah. I was like, are you sure? And that was, remember, like, just right after we got home from the hike where he did not want to go another day. So I said, this is like something I've dreamt about. Like, I really want to do this. I just have to make sure that you feel like the same way about it. He's like, yep, he really wants to do it.
Interesting.
So that was exactly, I was like, okay, let's try to make this happen.
That's awesome. Damn, I feel like, I wonder why. I kind of wish I could ask him that now. Like, why did you like want to do it after such a bad, like right after such a bad experience?
Yeah, I think I could. I definitely think I know why. Like, Rune is kind of like the type of guy where if you find something, okay, this is like a big challenge. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be hard. It's extreme. He's like, I'm up for the challenge.
That's awesome.
He's like, that's awesome. The hardest trail is like, yeah, I'm gonna see if I can do it.
That's awesome. I think that's why like we all got along so well too, because I like that. I like that shit. That's like the kind of attitude that I like from people. So let's fast forward a little bit to when you guys actually got to, you know, the States and started hiking. Because we all heard that whole story on the last episode. By the way, for everybody listening, if you haven't listened to episode 92 with Rune, you should definitely go do that. Probably I would wait till this one's over for the sake of my listening time, but go listen to that one after, because the story of how they got over here in the midst of COVID, like, you know, starting to all this crazy stuff. It's a crazy story. So go listen to that. But anyways, it's episode 92. So once you guys like finally got through that whole craziness and you finally got on trail, like at the beginning, can you just kind of like take me through those first couple days, like how you guys were feeling? I know you said it was a little bit harder than you had imagined. I'm curious how Rune was like feeling too. And like, I almost wonder if it was like really positive experience because you were finally there after all the crazy travel and all this shit, or if it was like hard. Can you just kind of take me through those first couple days?
Yeah, it was hard. I think so. I said that I was not the type of person who plans anything. Rune is exactly the opposite. Like we had all this planned out, and then it didn't quite like turn out the way that we wanted. So I just remember like everything being rushed, and then standing there looking at the odds, be like, okay, so now we just go.
And now you just go, yeah. Oh my God.
So it was kind of like the feeling like I was like, are we prepared for this? Like, we just start, I guess, and then we stay out here for who knows how long. It was kind of like that experience where you're like, I guess we just go now. Like I just imagine feeling like very prepared, or I was excited, but I was also very scared.
Yeah.
And I remember like looking through all the, like they have the small posters, or what would you call, like boards with all the like leave no trace.
Yeah.
And reading those and kind of just making my way up the waterfall. You're like, okay, now we're doing this. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
There's people, but it still felt kind of like, are we like, is this okay? Like with everything going on.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just really, I think weird is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and it's so crazy for me to think about what you guys must have gone through at the start there too, because I feel like it's weird for everybody. Like it was fucking weird for me when I first started. Like the first like half mile, like going up the stairs and all that stuff. At first it just felt like, okay, I'm just going for another hike. But pretty soon after, I kind of started to come to terms with the fact that I was like, okay, I just said goodbye to my family. And like, I'm going to be doing this for the next fucking months, like long time. Right? Yeah. I just can't even imagine that feeling, you know, in addition to the COVID stuff. Like, are we like supposed to be here? Like, what's going to happen in the future? Like all this craziness. That's nuts. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it was. And I think I kind of also felt like, are we being robbed of like the experience that Nick told me about? Yeah. Because he told me about all like the community, and going into that experience this year, I knew that was not going to be the case. And I think both me and Rune are like social butterflies. Like we love being with people, and that's a big part of the AT as well. Yeah. So I was kind of scared for like, are we going to be alone for most of the time? Do I have to keep like a short distance, and I cannot be like, I can be friendly with someone, but am I going to be close with them? Or like, what's the experience going to be like? Yeah. I think it was just like that, not knowing anything.
Yeah, exactly. I think, or I'm sure that pretty much everybody was kind of thinking these same questions. There's just so much unknown, and it's so crazy to look back at it now, you know, with a little bit of hindsight. But I remember even, obviously not being on trail, but even, myself, back then I was like confused and worried about what was going to happen in terms of the trail. I didn't know.
Like you don't know where like to put your attitudes or your feelings like towards something where you're not really sure what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you know it's not going to be good.
I guess how long into the hike, and I think I might have asked Rune a similar question, how long into the hike did you finally feel like you kind of settled down and got like a little bit comfortable, I guess? Because obviously at the beginning, regardless of COVID, not COVID, like everyone's going to have that adjustment period. But eventually you're going to come to terms with kind of what you're doing and get a little bit more comfortable, I guess, at least mentally. So when did you guys kind of finally start to feel that?
Honestly, so I'm sure if you asked me just when we started, like when we were on trail, like right in the beginning, if you asked me, I would probably say like, yeah, I'm comfortable. Like this is a routine. But honestly, I would say it wasn't until like after we took the break when we got off trail again, then we got back on May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Because right in the beginning, there were so many questions and we were still unsure whether we should stay
unknown,
or yeah, exactly. So it didn't really feel comfortable to me. Like it was still it was that feeling of knowing there's going to come a time where I have to get off trail. Like that sat with me. Like I knew that we're not going to just push through, break rules. So we're here on a visa. And it's not really anything that we would do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was just like, I'm just going to enjoy it as long as I can. And when we have to leave, then we leave.
Yep. Well, that's like kind of sucks to think about, but at the same time, I guess that's probably making the most of it, at least in terms
that was
of
like our experience, I guess.
Yeah, but you were still able to make it. Still able to make it. Let's see. I know one of the things that Rune, and actually both you guys were talking about this when you came and visited here in Burlington. The weather was something that kind of, I don't want to say like surprised you guys, but that was something. I guess, I don't know. I feel like maybe it'd be fair to say. Yeah. I feel like I remember that sticks out to me as something you guys had talked about quite a bit. So when did you guys finally start to realize like how volatile and sometimes just downright nonsensical the weather can be here on the East Coast?
Oh my God. It happened right as we got back on. I was saying even in the beginning, it was like we knew it was going to be cold and wet. That was like we thought that was going to be the AC, like cold and wet. But when we got back on, it was like a bipolar disease. Like it was everything. Like it was warm and then it was wet and then it got freezing cold with the polar vortex. We're like, what is going on this May? So I would say it was that like frequent like change all the time. Yeah. That we're just not used to. Like the weather up north with everything, like the climate we're used to it's very much similar. Like day to day, you don't have to check your weather app. Like you know what the weather is going to be like. Mm-hmm. Whereas theirs is like, oh, what is the weather going to be like next week? Like, are we going to freeze?
When did you guys really start to get the heat?
I wouldn't say that was like maybe July. July was crazy.
July was crazy?
I did not deal well with the heat. Yeah. And the humidity.
I remember you guys talking about this too, and I really resonated with that because it was the same thing for me because I sweat a lot and it sucks.
Me too. It's so bad.
It sucks so much. And so freaking hiking through Virginia in July for me was brutal. It was so brutal. Imagine.
Yeah, I remember. So I had my moments of like my share of crying. And a lot of times I cried just because I was sweating so much. I was so hot that I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Yeah. And then I just started crying and Rune was like, there's not much we can do about it. We just have to keep going.
Yep, pretty much. I resonate with that so much because that was my experience too. And like other people around me, they'd be sweating too, obviously, but
you're just overwhelmed.
Not nearly as much as I was. Like Flossie, like I swear to God, that guy like barely sweats. And I would just be I'd like pull up to a shelter drenched head to toe, just like, My freaking clothes. It's like I jumped in a
Me
swimming
too.
pool. And then
Yeah,
Flossie would show up with like nothing. I was like, come on, man, come on.
I would turn to the room and be like, you're not even sweating. It's like, yes, I am. I was like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Yeah, it sucks. The heat is it's just brutal.
Yeah, it is.
How about what section of trail was your favorite? Very generic question, but that's what we're doing right now.
Do I have to pick just one section?
No, you don't have to pick just one section. What sections were your favorite?
I
section, I'll define section as anything you want it to be. It could be a state, it could be a part of a state, it could be, anything. Very open question.
Mm-hmm. I think right in the beginning, when we hit the Rowan Highlands, that was when I was like, oh, wow, this is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then wasn't really until we got to the Whites. But I knew from Nick. Nick told me about the Whites all the time. That was his favorite section. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, something good is coming, but it's also gonna be like really hard work, but with like the reward of all the views. Were
you nervous before the Whites at all?
I was.
Because I know from my experience, people, again, I feel like I've talked about this on really early episodes, but it's been a while now. People were really just like hyping up the Whites and be like, oh, it's going to be so hard. Like you're going to cut your mileage in half and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'd hiked there quite a bit because it's pretty close to where I live here. And so I was like, I wasn't nervous at all for the Whites. I was excited because I was like, I get to see some stuff I've already done. It feels like home a little bit.
I remember we visited you just right before we got into the Whites.
Actually, that's so true.
You all these questions like, do I need like some like warmer layers? I hear it's going to be freezing. And I was like, I hear it's so hard that we're going to cut our miles into half. And you're like, no, you guys got it. Like,
I was like, you're going to be fine.
Like you're going to like, you're just going to like run right through the Whites.
And was I right?
Yeah, you were.
Let's go. That's why you should trust me, everybody. Watch my stupid videos and stuff.
But it was still hard. Like, but it was just like you just needed to hit that first mountain and be like, that wasn't so bad.
Yes, I feel like that's so true. That was the experience that I had as well, or not the experience that I had, but the experience I watched the people around me have, I guess.
Yeah, like you grow with confidence. You're like, oh my god,
exactly.
I got this.
It's like if you're going northbound, you go up Moosilauke or Moosilauke, however you pronounce it.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like after that, you're like, okay. You know, this was hard, but it's like, all right, I just did the first mountain in the Whites and like,
go down.
Yeah, oh my God, going down
like,
that shit is brutal. Beaver Brook is tough for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see. I guess, what was the weather like in the Whites? Because I remember when I sent you guys off, because for everybody listening, I picked Rune and Nikki up in West Hartford, Vermont, which is like right before Hanover, New Hampshire. So right before the border with New Hampshire, and then the Whites are probably a day or two after that. Mm-hmm. So I met up with them right before they got into the Whites, and I remember you guys were you not worried, but you were kind of prepping and looking at the weather and stuff. And I feel like the weather was kind of shitty the day I sent you off.
It was.
Did
it did not look promising, but it turned like right as when we got over Moosilauke, we were not able to see anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like not clear. It was rainy, but then right after, like the next day when we hit what's it called?
The Kinsmans?
Is it the Kinsmans? Is that the Kinsman? Oh my God!
You hiked a lot of mountains.
Yes, we did. It was sunny, it was clear, we could see everything. And the day right after was just even more beautiful, like Lafayette. Is that what it's called?
Lafayette is on Franconia Ridge.
Yes, exactly. The Franconia Ridge. Beautiful weather.
Yes, that's so good to hear. So I just remember walking through, I was like, oh my God, if we did this in bad weather, I would not be able to, like, I would have regret, like, just waited one more day. That's what you said too. You're like, if you could wait out bad weather, definitely wait it out. Yeah.
Because you don't want to be on a ridge in bad weather.
No. I still remember, and a lot of people that listen to this podcast are not so much thru hikers, but they're more like peak baggers, and a lot of them hike in the whites. So they know this, what I'm about to say already. So bear with me here, folks. But I still remember when I did Franconia Ridge on my thru hike. I had done it once before. But so I kind of knew what it was about a little bit. But on my thru hike, I almost felt like I did it again for the first time, because I was up there with, Flossie and a few other people that had never hiked in the whites before, and watching their reaction to it, it literally felt like I was doing it again for the first time. And again, like a lot of people know, like, oh, Franconia, like, of course, it's like one of these epic places, really overcrowded and, whatever. But like, just think about that, folks, for all you White Mountain hikers who probably maybe even stay away from Franconia at this point because it is so, popular. Like, just imagine like hiking it with somebody after coming all the way from Georgia, and watching them react to it for the first time, because there's really nothing like that on the AT up until that point, right? So
definitely no.
It was incredible, and I'm so glad to hear you guys got good weather up there too, because I feel like that's got to be like one of the most like just amazing
it was so
spots.
rewarding. It was like, you're tired. It is a hard climb, but you get up there and you instantly just forgot all about the hard work you put into it. You're like, oh my God, we just gotta keep going because this is beautiful.
And then you do the presidentials a couple days later, and then you're fucking like, if depending on the weather, you're probably just like over it and ready to get to Maine.
Definitely. Oh my God, that day was probably, I would say, one of the hardest days for me. The presidential.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
How was the weather on that day?
Oh my God, it
days?
was shit.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
Am
At least
I
you got
allowed to
good
say
weather
shit?
on Franconia. Yes. Oh yeah, you can swear for sure.
Yeah, I think it kind of like it balances out. It evens out. It's okay. But that was one of the days where I didn't know about the rocks. Like, I didn't know that you were like balancing from one rock to the other. And then we were not able to see anything but 6 feet ahead of us. Like,
wow.
Like the social distancing, like you couldn't see anything.
In a way, it was probably kind of nice,
windy.
because normally that place is so fucking crowded. There's just like so many people up there, but
Yeah.
who am I kidding?
There still was, and I was like looking, I was like, what are you doing up here?
People love that stuff, obviously, because it's like super epic and good weather. But
Yeah.
and that is true. Like the rocks up there, because like you're so far above tree line. I feel like it's different than tree line, like lower tree line, like we have here in Vermont and some other spots on the whites. Like it's still rocky, but up there it's like a whole nother level. The 2 or 3 times I've been up there, it's like
It's boulders.
It's tough. It's tough hiking. That was now that you say that was a tough day for us too. The day that we.
I remember just looking at the rocks, and I didn't look at anything but the rocks for like we got up early because we wanted to see the sunrise on top of Mount Washington. We did not see anything.
Oh no.
But it was like walking for 6 hours in winds and just looking at the rocks. And after that, I sat down. I was like, what was that? I was just so happy it was over.
How about I know we kind of skipped like the whole middle section of your hike, so we can go back in a second, but I'm just curious too to hear about. I feel like it's been a long time since I've had like an AT conversation like this. This is fun. How about the Mahoosuc notch section of trail, but not just the notch itself, like that whole
the arm too,
just like all that stuff, like that whole day that you went through there. I'm curious to hear about that, because that was definitely the
interesting,
like hardest physical day that I had on my whole through hike.
Yeah, I think so. We were like, as everyone else, you're very excited for that section because it's like it's 50-50. Like you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it.
Yep.
And we've done a lot of long, hard days like leading up to that. We did long days through the whites, and we just kept going. And I think we made like big ambitions for that particular day, and then we hit the notch, and we took care of one another, and it took us like 1.5 hours to go 1 mile. Like it was insane.
It is ridiculous, yeah.
But we were goofing around, having fun, and I remember after that I was like, "Oh, that was fun. Let's do it again." And then we hit the arm. I was like, "Oh my God!"
It's brutal. Because
oh my God.
That's one thing I didn't realize about the notch is
no one talks about the arm.
It's like exactly, because you hear all about the notch, obviously, because it's crazy and nothing like it. But what you don't realize, or what at least I didn't realize, is that the notch is, I mean, it's a notch, right? So that means there's big ass,
you're
slopes
climbing
on
under
both
rocks.
sides.
Yeah,
and like the thing that a lot of, or at least I didn't realize this, is you hear about the notch, obviously, but I didn't realize that the notch, I mean, it's a notch, so maybe in hindsight it's kind of obvious, but there's big ass hills on both sides of the notch.
Yeah.
So you don't just like hike on flat, easy trail, then get to the notch, get through it, and then go on your merry way. Like, you have to go down a really fucking steep mountain to just get to the notch. You got to go through the notch, and then you're going to go back up the arm. So it's like, I think that whole combination is what makes that section of trail so difficult.
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh
really
man,
difficult.
that was brutal. I remember that shit. That was a brutal day. It was fun, but it was tough.
I remember
tough.
it too. Like, we did the notch, sat down, had lunch, and then made our way up, and it was like, it's a climb.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is. And you're still like, even though you don't feel like sore or exhausted, like just all that climbing with your hands above your head, like shoving through, like with your backpack on and everything, like you were still exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start making your way up. I think we only did 9 miles that day, and we all sat down. It was like, oh my God, that felt like 30 miles.
It does. Like, that was the day that kind of broke my friend Mullet Mike too, as folks who have listened to some of the early episodes will recall, hopefully. How about, like, so this is one thing. I did a video on this recently, so I was just thinking about it. How about like bears? How many bears did you guys see? Or bear?
Yeah, bears.
I don't know what the plural is.
We saw like the first, like we saw a few bears in the like distance, like far away. A mom and a few cubs running away, and just right after, when we got into Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't really have any bear encounters for a long time, and we were kind of disappointed. And then we got to bed right after we climbed up 3 ridges in Virginia.
Yep.
We got up and camped. It was dark. We were so tired and lazy, so we just hang up food bags like a few, like very close to the tent. Something you're not supposed, like, don't do this.
Definitely not.
And Rune heard something. And he was like, oh my God, I think there's bears outside our tent. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So he shines light outside the tent, and there's 2 bears in our food bags.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I was not getting out of the tent. I didn't know. I was like, what do we do? Like, do we make noise? Do we just pretend? Like, do we just hope that they go away? And I was like trying to think of what we should do, and Rune just got out the tent in his underwear and just screamed and yelled and scared them away.
Wait, were they like actually like up in the tree, like getting your food?
And our food wasn't even in the tree. It was like tied to the trunk.
Oh, okay. Did they get into the bag at all?
No, because Rune was so quick. Like, he like immediately just got out, and we talked about it after. I was like, weren't you scared? It's like, no, I was so annoyed. Like, I wanted to go to bed.
Like, get away from my food, you fucking bears.
Oh my God, I want to sleep. So he just got out, and he was not scared at all. It wasn't until after he thought about it, he was like, wait, that was not, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of, well, what you really shouldn't do, what you really shouldn't have done, as you just said a second ago, is you probably shouldn't have just tied it to a tree. But I think that's what you like. What else are you gonna do? Like, you gotta, you're supposed to. I don't know. Are you supposed to scare them away? I just did the video on bear safety. I should know this, but
you don't want the bears to think that like they're attracted to your food bags. Well,
I mean, that's what I would do.
I
feel
like a good bear hang.
Yeah,
and then you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
But we were just really lazy.
Did you guys start hanging your food after that?
Oh, yes. The funny thing is, right in the morning when it, like, we could see just we saw the food hang that we could have used.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very close to the tent. Definitely saw it if we weren't there before the sun went down. I'm just looking at it like, oh my God, this is so stupid.
Well, hopefully you didn't make that mistake again. I feel like a lot of people, and like I totally understand why people don't like to hang their food. Like I definitely understand that. And to be honest with you, I didn't hang my food until the AT, but I feel like a lot of the time it does take a experience, maybe not one quite as drastic as that, but some sort of bear encounter before people are like, oh shit, okay, I guess I should probably take this a little more seriously.
Exactly.
And then once you get good at hanging a bear bag, like it almost becomes fun in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a challenge, like a fun challenge. I kind of like hanging my food now, to be honest.
You're like, look what I just did.
Yeah. I don't like it when it's hard to like find a good branch or if it's like raining or something like that, but I feel like at the end of the day, like most of the time, it's just like one more thing to keep you occupied. Like at the end of the day, before you just like eat and go to bed. So
normally it's just part of the routine. Like you're gonna hang your food bag, and you do this every day. But I remember just that one day, we haven't seen any bears. Let's just put it around the trunk of the tree.
Nikki, so on the show, as you know, that was a rhyme. Nikki, so on the show, as you know, we do the story thing at the end of the episode, and there's I always like to own up to the situation when I don't properly give my guest a heads up about this, and I'm just gonna be honest, folks. I butchered this with Nikki. Not only did I not remind her about the end of the episode story, but I also didn't tell her any of the information about how we record. Like, all I did was like, hey, want to record at 9 tomorrow morning? And she's like, yeah. I was like, all right. Thankfully, Rune stepped up, and Rune is the one that told her all that stuff. So I want to give him the credit and not take it myself. So I did not remind Nikki of the story thing. However, Rune did. So she has a story prepared. And this is what I'm actually kind of morbidly excited to hear about because I've seen the pictures, but I haven't actually heard the story. So anyways, without spoiling it too much, Nikki, let's hear the face story.
The face story, yeah. How did you get the face? Yeah, the face story. We were getting very close to the end of like the journey. We entered the 100-mile wilderness. We packed for 5 days worth of food, and we were making progress. It was still like we were all tired and just ready to get to top of Mount Katahdin. And I remember Rune was telling me like, okay, now there's this and this many like hard mountains to go. Like he was really sweet and trying to like get my spirit up. He was like, okay, you got one more big climb. And that was what he said to me that day when I got the face. So he's like, this is the Bigelows. He's like, this is no, it wasn't the Bigelows. I can't even remember what it's called.
I can't remember either, honestly.
Yeah, but it's like, you would know, like as you're like making your way southbound is like the first climb that you do. And we were making our way down that climb. We just finished. We just saw Mount Katahdin. We're getting so close.
I remember the spot that you're talking about. I do not remember the name though, because like when you're going northbound, it's like you're there and you see Mount Katahdin so clearly. You're like,
exactly.
Why the fuck do I care about the name of the mountain I'm on right now?
He's like, okay, I know what I'm getting. Like I'm just gonna go forward.
I'm sure somebody listening knows, but yeah, we can't remember.
But I remember, like, you get in the mindset where I wouldn't say you get lazy, but your body reacts like, oh, now I can relax.
Yeah.
Like that was the big climb. Now it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Like from here on, I just gotta go. And we were making our way down, and I all of a sudden just forgot how to hike or fall or anything. And I just stumbled, and kind of like you would, like a tree like just like slammed my face into the like down and hit it real hard.
Did you hit it? Wait, did you hit your face on like a rock?
Yes, I did. So I've done this. I did this multiple times on the trail, but it was almost like I knew it was gonna happen. So I picked like the soft, and I say soft like with my like it wasn't exactly soft, but like you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But not this time. Like there was a rock, and I just slammed my face right into the rock, and I knew, oh my god. You just kind of like the feeling where you know this is bad. Yeah. And I instantly just started screaming, crying. And I touched my head, like where I hit my head, and there was just blood coming out like from my forehead and my eyebrow. And Rune panicked.
Oh my god! I was just gonna say, I was like, "What did Rune do?" Because that would freak me out too if that happened to like a hiking partner. Exactly,
Rune panicked, and he was just like, because at that point I was still lying on the ground, so he had to get me up, and I couldn't exactly like find out like what was going on. And luckily, we were with two other people. One of them was a nurse, so she acted really quick, like trying to find out if I had a concussion or how much I was bleeding. She gave me water and told me, don't take these painkillers. They're like blood, like they would thin your blood. So they tied like a bandana around my head and quickly made sure if I was okay. And I luckily was. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, okay, it was a bad hit, but I'm okay.
No concussion.
I'm just gonna take it. No concussion. Okay. I was like, I'm just gonna take it slow. But as you know, like when you're in the 100-mile wilderness, it's not exactly wilderness, but you got a long way to go if you want to get like, to anywhere.
That's like the worst place for that to happen, because
I know, right?
It's like if you're on another section of trail, if you're in like, I don't know, Pennsylvania, for instance, it's like the total opposite. There's so many fucking roads, and even in other sections that have a little bit less, like parts of Virginia, you're still usually only doing
you can
3 days,
towns,
you know?
Like you can hear the sounds of cars.
And there's side trails and stuff, but obviously, I mean, everyone knows the 100-mile wilderness is the 100-mile fucking wilderness, so it's just the worst possible spot for that to happen, pretty much.
Yeah, but I remember I was feeling okay. Like I wasn't feeling my very best. And I was just like, okay, I hit my head, but I'm okay. I'm just gonna take it really slow. And we made it, and I knew there was a couple of road crossing left until there would be like a long section where we wouldn't be able to get off if we wanted to. So Rune was reminding me like, okay, you have to be very honest. Like if you feel bad, we need to get off like here. Like you can't cross this road and then be like, okay, maybe we should have gone out.
Oh, that's such a hard decision. Damn.
Yeah, because we were with everyone we've hiked with, and I was like, are we gonna not be able to finish with everyone because I hit my head on like 5 days before we were at Katahdin, or even 3 days before? Like it was so close. But we made it to camp, and I remember about 3 miles before we got to camp, we made it down to like that final road crossing. And a guy named Iceman that maybe some people know, who does trail magic, he was there and we didn't know, and I just started crying. Like I'm a crier, like hence the trail name Burst. Like I just burst into tears, and I was standing there like with the blood and with the bandana, and he was just looking at me and he's like, is she happy? But it was just like one of those things where it's like, it's so simple what he does. Like it's food and it's a chair, but it was everything to me.
Oh, I bet that must have been, wow.
Like I was so grateful. But then we got to camp, and I woke up the next morning and I couldn't open my eye. Because the blood had just rushed down from my forehead right into my eye as I was laying down. And it was swollen, and it was like pink, purpley. and I couldn't open it. And everyone just sat up in the shelter and looked at me, and they're like, "Are you okay?"
Oh my God.
And I was like, "I don't think I can open my eye." And Rune was just like, "Ooh, this is not good." And I, it's one of those things where you don't have a mirror. Like, people are just looking at you like, what do I look like?
Wow, okay. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Like, I hadn't gotten a chance to like look at my face, but someone, like the nurse, just went and got water. And it's like, put this on your eye. Because we didn't have any ice.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything, like any disinfection wipes, or like maybe we got some hand sanitizer, but I was like, what do we do? And I put my like camera on my phone, and I looked at my face, and I was just thinking of our summit picture.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I was just because like, is this what I'm gonna look like on my summit picture?
Oh my God, that's brutal.
What do you call like the hunchback of Notre Dame? Is that what you call him?
Yeah.
That was what I felt like. And that was also pretty much like what I looked like, with my eye like shot and all red and purple, and the swelling just like kept going down my cheek, so I couldn't see my feet on like one side of my face, so I just kept on stumbling, and Rune was getting like a little bit annoyed. He was like, "You better not fall."
Yeah, no kidding.
He was like, "Take care, like we're so close, like don't fall." And I didn't have any service out throughout the 100-mile wilderness. So I didn't really get a chance to tell my mom or anyone that I like hit my head really bad.
Yeah.
Or get a chance like send her a picture. So what Rune did was he took a picture, and he had service, and he uploaded it to Instagram, like, and told the story. And none of us had thought that, like, maybe we should have told someone before we just posted the picture. Like,
yeah.
So I remember getting service, and everyone was just asking like questions like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, oh my God, it looks so bad."
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Please take care of yourself. Like, I want to get you home as well." And I felt kind of bad.
That's, yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about that either. I'm like trying to find the pictures right now on your Instagram. Like, oh, that looks brutal.
Yeah, it was bad.
How long did it take before it like finally like healed up, or like aesthetically, like you couldn't really?
Yeah, it went pretty fast, I would say. Like it was still looking really bad as we were like, Rune has a picture from us on the bridge looking at Mount Katahdin the day before we were going to summit.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like, "You need to smile, otherwise it looks like I just like I hit you."
Oh no.
I was like, "I am smiling." He's like, "No, you're not. You need to show your teeth."
Oh man, that's
because
brutal.
I did not look happy. Like, my face was swollen.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I looked like a beat child. It was so bad. But
you finished it. That's so badass.
Yeah, I did. We got to the top, and we made our way down. And then I decided to peel off the scar. Like, it was all like brown, red, like my forehead. And that was a good idea, actually. I just put some cream on it, and then it instantly looked way better. So that was my way of fixing it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. I think I have a small, like, maybe like you could see that my skin's a little bit more brownish on my forehead, but that's the only like mark I have from that like rock, or what I like to say, like the kiss I got from the trail, like the goodbye.
The goodbye, yeah. That's so funny. That's crazy. Well, I'm glad you were okay. I'm glad you were able to make it out and finish, obviously.
Aww,
so
too.
Yeah, be careful, everybody. Jeez, be careful.
Yeah, be careful. Learn how to fall. Like, use your arms.
I think that's gonna do it, Nikki. Thank you so much for coming on here. This was awesome. Like I said earlier, I love talking about the AT, obviously.
Yeah, me too.
So Yeah, thank you. Why don't you go ahead and plug your Insta or anything you want to plug so people can go follow you, maybe dig up those gnarly photos of your
of my
injury.
Face. My beautiful face. I would say like to add, like if you it's probably easy to find me on Instagram.
Sure.
Pretty much if you just search my name, like Nikoline, that would find my name. But it's Nikoline Hamann if anyone's interested.
Awesome. I'll have a link.
That up.
I'll have a link in the show notes too to the Insta.
I think that's a good idea.
As I always do. So yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Nikki, thank you again one more time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Good Sunday.